Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Black History Podcast under Brava. So today we're going to be talking about Black History Month and particularly talking about positive role models of black men. So today with me, I've got some great, interesting men, some guys with some excellent experience, some great knowledge, and so I just want to give them a quick shout. I can't do that on the microphone. Edit that, please. So first of all, we've got Rico. Rico is an event organizer. Started from the bottom to the top, well, Drake. And he's done loads in terms of organising events. He had one of the biggest sports teams, I would say in Birmingham, actually, and won the Summers and did some really good stuff. We're not friends because he beat us one time in basketball, but we'll leave that for another podcast. We have Wayne, who's done some excellent work working with young people, changing mindsets and developing them to become real good young people within schools and even in colleges. And we have Malikha, who's done some great entrepreneurial work and supporting young people within schools and I believe in other education as well. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So one of the reasons we're doing this podcast today is particularly, as October always is, it's Black History Month. And to do a bit of a change around Black history, we're always talking about being in chains, and it seems to be the same repetitive thing that we're always talking about. So I wanted to bring a particular message around what are some of the issues that are preventing us from being successful in work, in schools, in education, in relationships, and just basically in the community. Excuse me. So I'm going to fire some questions out to the guys, and hopefully we'll have a great discussion around it. Is that all right, guys?
Yep.
Okay. They're looking a bit nervous. We're going to start very easy. So one of the questions I'm going to put out there is, what do you think, Wayne, is some of the things that prevent, what's stopping some of our young boys from achieving excellence within schools? Because let's keep saying that when it comes to school, young black boys, there seems to be a lack of development. They're not getting the highest grades as much as some of the girls are. So from your experience, what would you say some of the problems are?
From, say, within my work, some of the things that I've seen, that question itself is kind of multifaceted, so I can't give one answer that's going to cover all of that, but from what I've seen is the role models is something that's a big thing that I have recognised. You got a number of young black kids who are coming from broken homes, and there is a lack of role models within that to kind of give them aspiration in going forwards. And their form of aspirations is on the negatives, I can put it in that way. So if a young person is only seeing the negatives to aspire to and not so much the positives, then that in itself is one of the branches that I've recognized is a problem for young black boys growing up. I'd also probably go as well as education within the family dynamics itself. I know of quite a number of people who their parents, so to speak, weren't necessarily well educated. So they were unable to pass that down to their children to strive for the best, go for the best. And I mean, I'll go a little bit personal in saying that was something in our own household. Growing up, my mum did the best she could to raise her kids in the best way she could, but it could only go so far. And it's only when I've, to the point of where I am now, and I see throughout the years where you got two sets of black boys, and put it this way. So you got one who has a family network where, say, parents have gone through the education system, they've done the school, they've done the college, they've done the uni, they're aspiring. They could be somebody in the medical profession or in the world of being a solicitor and so forth. And I've seen the guidance that they give to their child and how far they would go to push them. But then I've seen the opposite of where a parent didn't have that. And the most I'll probably hear is, for example, read a book, stay in school, keep your eye off girls and so forth. So that is one angle for me that I would honestly say that I've seen as a problem, the role models, the type of people around that young person to kind of help them reach their future aspirations.
Okay. What about yourself, Rico? Because I know that you've worked with a lot of your friends as well, they've come from different backgrounds and the street and stuff like that. So have you got any experience from that as well? Talk too long, man. I'm taking out my microphone. Nah, joking. No, okay, we'll come back to that one. With Malikha, then, okay, I'm going to come to you on that one as well. You work in schools as well, same as Wayne. What's your been experience of particularly young black boys within schools and education?
Slightly different, if I'm going to be honest. The government's put out a lot of statistics in regards to young black boys overachieving at the moment. So it's a bit of a myth. When I was in university, my degree was about the myth of young black boys underachieving. And when you look at the statistics and you look at the governance that's running through that, it's now white, indigenous, working class white boys who are underachieving greater exponentially than black boys, than any set of other young people. So for me, I agree with what my friend said. It is about role models, but I think there's a different dynamics that's happening around role models. The role models that you've mentioned, the solicitors, the barristers, the doctors, they're not so much the in thing anymore, but the entrepreneurs, the businessmen, the recording artists, those who are doing something slightly different, they're becoming this generation's role models. And I think what you're finding is it's a weird balance. The family structure has definitely got something to do with it. So I totally agree with you, my friend. But, I came from a single parent household. My mum struggled and a lot of people around me, they struggled. But, we're sitting in a studio doing this podcast based on some of the struggles of some of our parents that have allowed us to put this kind of together. So for me, the family dynamics isn't as great as it used to be, because family now is friends. You talk to young people, they're like, yo, that's my fam. You're like, but you're not related to them by blood. That's my fam. And they will die and ride hard for them. So for me, you're finding that there's a lot more black young boys specifically achieving, but we're just not speaking about it enough. And we're kind of going with the same narrative of underachieving. And when we look at the stats blow it out of the water. So for me, one of the things that I love, if I kind of switch what you said, is that they're doing it. And they're doing it quietly, but they're doing it.
But do they understand that they're actually doing it? Because I hear what you're saying, that with young black boys achieving and doing well, but that doesn't seem to be the message that constantly seems to be going out there. So there's still that negative statistics going around, like, even though they're probably not even aware of the statistics that's going out there.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Yeah, I am.
Statistic.
Talking in tongues on the microphone, guys. But I don't think young boys recognise that actually they're doing well, because there's so much stigma around, okay, you're just like that person. Or when they look in the newspaper, when it looks at successful young black guys, they've got chains, they've got foil on their teeth, they've got some big piece of chains, and so to them, does success look different?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah, I like the
whole month for that.
And I didn't even write that down.
Okay, ask me one part of that. Are you saying that has success changed in the eyes of young black men?
Yeah, I would say so.
Then I would say yeah. Success for me probably is going to be different to someone a couple of generations older than me. Success for me ain't necessarily about having a house and a wife and kids. Success for me is probably, having the freedom to travel the world, to explore different cultures, to create a legacy that I can, grow from, make money, and be able to still connect with my spiritual side without feeling chained or feeling like I can't be who I am. Whereas another person from a different walk of life, success for them could be just, I just want to stay alive. So I think success is kind of evolved in different ways, but I'm going to go back to what you said. There needs to be more role models that are celebrating the different aspects of black success, because just because you're not a lawyer doesn't make you successful. Yeah. Just because you may not have an MBE or a CBE or EFG, it doesn't mean that you're not successful. I know many people with some fantastic accolades, but they're still struggling. So success, I think, is objective to the person. The only thing that I would say is that we sometimes as forerunners have to present an alternative narrative to this generation to say, you don't necessarily have to have the big chains or the big whip or the fancy things or the, as you said, the foil on your teeth to be successful. Just being content with being who you are is an amazing success in itself.
Okay. And for those that don't know what fall on their teeth are, that's grills. I just thought I'd educate people out there because people might be like, do I need to go and put some foil on my teeth? I wouldn't
about
do
that
that.
life.
But, you know, I can tell you some shops where you used to get foil from at reasonable prices. So you touched on something there that I'm going to come to Rico about, and that's entrepreneurship. Now, it seems to be something that keeps me thrown around quite a lot now. And when I was younger, it wasn't thrown around so much. I think the word for entrepreneurs when I was younger was a hustle. And now it seems to have like a title of, if I'm hustling, I'm an entrepreneur. But I know, Rico, you're an entrepreneur yourself as well. What influences did you have to kind of take that step? Because it's not an easy thing to do.
With that, like I said, I run my own event company. But with that in itself, I was trying to find a path where I want to be, where I want to go. I didn't get the best grades in school. And from then I knew it's going to be, starting from the bottom, get to the top. No matter how you're going to do it, you're going to get there. So for me, it's a case of I was good at networking. Everyone always said to me, "Why don't you just start something?" But I was scared to do it. So I work full time. I do it part time. But then I watch others, and bit by bit, slowly by slowly, I'm doing events. I'm networking, to a point where I got 5,000 followers.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. People ringing my phone. Can I buy your followers off you? That's when I realised my net worth. That's when I realised I could turn this into a business.
Yeah.
And so for that in itself, I said I look at the youngsters now. Everyone entrepreneurs. I went to a meeting about a year ago. I met a 12-year-old kid. He interviews CEOs. He's only 12 years old.
Wow.
Any new cars that come out at Jaguar, he's there, interview. And he's 12 years old. When I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
I just think like times have changed. Times have changed now. So you go on YouTube, you can make money. Everyone knows. Any little thing now, you can make money. Some people call it hustling. Whatever you want to call it, you're making money. But that's just the way it is.
So, and keeping with being an entrepreneur as well, Wayne, within schools, do you see a lot of young people even using that term, or have they got aspirations to even work for themselves now? Because I know it's more and more of a thing being pushed out about going self-employed, a bit like what Malikha said was that whole career thing that used to be pushed in your face of when you finish school, become a doctor, become a lawyer, be something that used to be big, isn't really so much put in their face now. What are some of the things that young people are pushing to want to be now?
A number of the young people still are at a stage where they don't know yet what it is they want. And when we talk about their future aspirations, it's met with a lot of don't know. That is the beginning of where it all starts. And when I really think about that a bit more, and for some reason I can't come away from the role model soon, because as I'm sitting there, I consider separation like I sat in one room with the question of, almost like when you ask a primary school kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? So you're kind of putting that out there to the teenagers, but it's just in a different language that they can connect to. And the split in the room is, I would say it's like 60-40. So you'd have 40% that have some idea of what it is that they want to go into. The 60% haven't got a clue. And the 40%, and it goes back to what you was talking about, entrepreneurship, but the language they're using is not that, it's the grind, it's the hustle. And when they talk about the grind or the hustle, they're not looking at it from a business point of view sense. In one essence, they're looking at it from the shutter life, the roadman life, because it's what they're attracted to, it's what they see. Now, the 40%, they would talk about things that mom and dad have said for them to go for, and there's nothing wrong with that, because at least it's keeping them focused. But then there's a small few in that talk about that grind and hustle. But they look at it, something what you said to me just caught my ear, the YouTube aspect. And the biggest thought I see with a lot of young teenagers, and I'd say between the ages of 11 to 14, I want to be a YouTube gamer. Yeah. But I don't knock that, because they've done their homework on this. So when they start telling me, oh, have you heard of so-and-so? I'm like, who? And then they take me on YouTube, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, you put in those amount of hours to watch this guy, but they're not just watching him play games. They're clocking his audience. Yeah. You know, they're paying attention to that. They're paying attention to the sponsors. So I would say at this moment, there is a movement taking place with teenagers within the education setting, but it's not the majority at this moment in time. It's a bit of an uneven one in terms of how some of them are viewing how they want to go forward and on what they see as either their own future aspirations or what they may see as this is the hustle or the grind or being an entrepreneur. And I just want to say this, something that you say, Malikha, really kind of touched with me. When we talk about entrepreneurs nowadays, it is a whole different facet to what it used to look like before. For example, I think of Cephas Williams, 56 Black Men. You know, that's a real powerful movement going on there right now down in London, and I've been keeping my eye on that. And when you see the pictures of those 56 black men, look at their profiles, look at what they do, you know, from mentors, plumbers, some in courts, running their own fashion design, or they've got things on with a computing IT software. And they're just showing, look, you don't necessarily have to be reaching to the stars to become someone. Being a plumber is just as good, because do you know what I mean? So it's still positive black male role models in that. So yeah.
Okay, and it leads me on to another question I was going to ask actually, and we're going to move a little bit away from younger people, because I'm going to come back to that on a later date on another podcast one. But particularly now, looking at black men. Okay, so it's something I've observed myself. So I could be walking down the street to walk to maybe a white guy, and he would look at me and he'd be like, "You're right," and you're right, and you carry on walking. But if you're walking past a black guy, you kind of have to go through a process of, am I in danger or are you in danger? What are you wearing? What am I wearing? Do you recognize you? Do you recognize me? And then one of you get the courage to be like, "You're good." You're like, "Yeah." Or you might get a nod, or you get some level of acknowledgement, and you're on your way. And that's literally seconds, but it can almost feel like 3 minutes of, hold on, I just feel like I've been interviewed on whether or not it's safe to pass you. So my question is, and maybe I'm just kind of blowing out proportion, but what, from your guys' experiences, I mean, have you experienced that before? And what do you think that is? Is it a mindset of, okay, we have to kind of almost be difficult to our own? Because if walking past a white guy, I don't feel any worry or any issues, and they're happy to say hi. And when you're walking past your own, it almost feels like there's a kind of a process of, yo, like, you know, do you owe me any money? Like, I don't even know who you are. I don't live in this area. I'm from a different neighborhood. What's your guys' experience on this one?
Mike's on you. Mike's on you.
Yeah, all right. Let me be the first one to get it out on mic. Get it out there. I hear where you're coming from with that. There is it's like a sense of awkwardness or a kind of moment of you're figuring out that next person in front of you to see what they're about. But when I think back to my teenage years, for example, to what it is like, say, now, I was free to roam to some extent. I didn't have to entertain that as such. Yeah, there were certain dudes you knew you had to watch from a distance. You knew what they were about. But when I think of teenagers now, and for when we talk about, say, young black boys in particular, the post-Cold War has a part to play in that, why there is this apprehension of why someone would feel, I gotta check this dude out to know if it's all right to pass him, kind of thing. Post-Cold Wars didn't exist in my time as a youth growing up, but to what it is now, it's rampant and it's crazy. So when I hear young people saying, "Oh, I ain't going into that area," all right, I'll give you an example. This happened not too long ago. I was talking to a young guy about just broadening out from his ends, because from over, I work in the Sandwell area, and there's an area up there, Tipton. And what I've learned is that a lot of the young people in Tipton stay in Tipton, don't come out of Tipton. So me and this kid got talking. He wanted to do some stuff. So I said, look, in order to take some steps, that means we're going to have to take a trip to Brum City Centre. Brum City Centre? Where's that? But it's funny as it may seem, though, but one of the things I realised in that conversation, for him, it wasn't just about this naivety of it. It was like, I'm not going anywhere that makes me feel unsafe. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it really came down to. I think in some ways we've bought into a stereotype as well within the black community. To be honest, we have allowed labels to be put on us that we must behave and think and do a certain way when we greet one another, when we approach one another. We are taught to be cautious. We are taught to be wary, you know, and for various different reasons. But I think it's just, that needs to be broken. The stereotypes that's in it. I see Malikha was shaking his head on that stereotype. So you know what's happening here now.
but you know what? Because I just say that. I mean, another thing that came to mind was as well. And again, maybe you guys have the experience. So for younger black guys, we kind of go through that whole process of looking at each other. If it's a Rastafarian kind of guy, there's that kind of, wait, are you right? Yes, lion. I'm not a lion, but I'm a tiger. But it's a different kind of acknowledgement.
South Asian.
Yes, you know what I mean? That kind of that respect of, yeah, man, that's good. But younger guys, again, it's that look of, what are you looking at me for? And again, I'm going to come to you, Malikha, and ask the question, what's your thoughts on it? But something that came to mind was Jay-Z talked about self-hate and how we hate ourselves, and maybe when we look at each other, we're acknowledging the part we don't like about us. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, but Malikha, what's your thoughts on this?
I understand why you throw these complicated,
I just like to throw it.
multi-layered questions at me, like, no yes or no. Is this? Thank you, though, you know. Okay, Jay-Z, an amazing entrepreneur, an icon, blueprint writer in regards to this generation. He's captured a generation, he's captured an audience. So just to add that, because you referenced him, but within the same breath, he dropped a very iconic album, which really challenged a lot of us on how we look at black, and also how we look at, you know, savings, how we look at making a will, how we look at the fact that you will always be black no matter your postcode, no matter the money in your bank account. When you look at people like LeBron James, you know, one of the most high-paid athletes, but still having abusive, negative N-word spray painted on his house, and he has a black card. You know what I'm saying? Easily, you have to have a couple million, easy to have a black card. So I use that as a basis to say that there will always be a fear of black, because it's always been perpetuated that black is a dangerous thing. You know, anything which has black in it usually has a negative connotation, unless you're in the financial industry. Now, it twists here because being in the red is a negative. Red letter, you know, you got red bills. Oh, can't have these letters come into my house. Red ink. But in the financial industry, being in the black is the best thing you can ever be, because it means that you're above, you're succeeding, and you're hitting a quota that's absolutely amazing. I say that to say, I don't have an issue when I walk past any person, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, whatever it is. And it does come down to this element of self-hate, self-loathing, and understanding who you are. I haven't got a problem with Malikha. I look in the mirror and it sounds, sorry, let me cuss myself. I shouldn't even have to say it sounds arrogant to say it, but I have to give an apology to say it sounds arrogant that I haven't got a problem with myself. That's how much self-loathing we've been allowed to buy into, that we have to apologize for being successful and for loving the blackness of our skin tone and our mindset. So when I see another black guy, irrespective of their age, it's always love. And I think, you know, some of the other thinkers will say it's the energy that you put out, you get what you put out. In regards to the young people, I think once again, we've allowed it to become, and I totally buy into what you're saying, we've allowed these stickers, these statements to become normalized within our culture, where we can't see each other and hail up each other and say, I love what you've done, you know. You're killing it, bro. It chokes us up, whereas another culture or another identity will hail us up and say, hey, Rico, you're killing it, dude. You know, like they're loving on you to the point you're like, dude, what's the matter with you? But our own, cut corner. How am I cutting a corner? And for me, I think the humor within it is that we have to realize that we're not in that era anymore. If you're still holding on to Willie Lynch theories and everything, you're as bad as the theory. We have to kind of move away from the self-defeating perspectives of black means this or means that, and just accept the fact that we're human beings. We're really great at what we do. Every culture has some downfalls. Every culture has some great success stories. And just like our own, we're no different. You know, the only thing is black cells. A white guy in Solihull could stab someone and he probably wouldn't get any airtime. A black guy could stab himself and he's now the world's greatest murderer. And I say it in jest because black cells, you know, it's a part of the black exploitation.
That's true. I hear that. What about yourself, Rico? What's your thoughts on this one?
I've experienced it. I think it just comes down to like male pride. Who's gonna back down first or nod your head? And that's what it is. And like walking here today, like seeing a couple of youngsters and like, looking at me like, "What's up?" And they look confused. Not used to it. And they said it's the label. So they said you walk down the street, a white person might say hello, but in theory they're across the road. Is that label? But can we change it?
Yeah,
It can be done.
And I'm glad you said that because I feel like you stole my notes. How do we change that? Because we're about to wrap this up in a bit, but how do we change the stigmas that we have on ourselves, but for the community that we're in as well? Because I mean, like, I totally agree. It's about the energies you give and obviously acknowledging people when they're doing well, whether they know it or not. So how are some of the things that we can change the narratives or the thought process of how some of us guys are? Because, you know, I mean, has it been tried before? I don't know. But what's one of the things that you guys think we could try different, particularly for those that are listening to this podcast now, that they could try out to change people in their community? Oh, everyone's like, oh. I shouldn't do it without laying your hands on it.
Should I just get it out of the way? I'll just get my little 2 pence in.
Just do it, man, do it.
I think it's a multifaceted approach. Each one of us represents a different aspect of the black community. From it's going to be a faith-based, from it's going to be financial, from it's going to be social, from it's going to be economical, you know, from it's going to be different perspectives. And I think you've got to do what you're good at for your community. There's no point in me trying to be, you know, a social media impactor and do like 56, you know, my guy over in London. That's not me. But I can probably help financially for us to understand how we can better save, better invest, so that we can make ourselves financially free, buy our own stuff and invest within our own community. I say that, and I will etch this just to give someone else a platform. It really does come back down to us not being afraid to put ourselves out there as that we are amazing, you know, and becoming upfront inspirational images and not cowering away this, you know, this false sense of humility. Yeah. No. You're a role model. The moment you step out your front door, you are a role model to your community and to others. So whatever suit you wear as a superhero, represent that. And that's just me.
I like
that. To serve the community is the first kind of, I think it has to start, you've got to have a knowing of self. In terms of what I mean by that is we all carry gifts and talents, skill sets, but we must first recognize that it's not for our benefit only. It is meant to serve one another out there. So I think knowing who you are and what you carry, I think is the most powerful thing before you can take it out there into the community. And something Malikha just said, you don't have to. I was just thinking of that statement. In my head, I'm like, okay, when a person steps out through the front door, you don't have to have a certain image for people to notice you in order to be accepted, to be able to then engage in the community. Going back to like what you were saying, Malikha, about the whole financial aspect of things. I mean, one of the areas that I'm very heavily invested into is people's well-being, their mental health and well-being. And it's not just, I say that because of the work I do that from the outside as well. You know, just to be able to sit with one or two people and say, where are you at in yourself and how are you? That's a serving in the community. I think sometimes we think in order to serve the community, we've got to be doing something great. It's not. I don't see it in that way. I think it's just asking your fellow man, fellow woman, how are you to begin with, you know, and look and see if there is an opportunity there to serve, and then take it from there and build on it. It's literally about each one, teach one, you know, and I'm a great believer of that. So one person you impact and you see the connection you have with them, it's like I DMX say it one time, hit them all with it. If you make one good song and you've got a bag of people in that one good song, hit them all with with the same result. But it's one of those, yeah. So you make an impact in the community first. I think it's got to start with you. You got to know about self. You've got to know about the gifts that God has given you as an individual and what that looks like then in the wider community, because it carries then serious weight. And never think of that you have to start somewhere high in order to serve the community. Nah, not at all.
Hey, I think the guy said it all for me. But yeah, I think just get to the youth a lot quicker than what we're doing now. But it's one of those ones where like I think we need to understand them and get to their level, and then try and change that mindset. But I do think in certain aspects that their mindset is moving in that right direction. I said for them, for the youth today, it's online. Everything's online. What they see is online, music. I say, you make a song, you put the right lyrics in that song, they'll follow it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we've come to that marker now where we're about to wrap this up. So guys, I want to say thank you so much for giving me your time to be on this Black History Month for Brava special. We're going to go with that one. Quite like the title. Yay. Guys, if you like any more of this, please go into all our social media outlets and find more information about all of us. Actually, can you share some of the your social media addresses where you guys are at? So Rico, I know you're all over social media. You know, you can't hide. The only thing I know, you're not on the Snapchat. So I just outed him out. He's going to headlock me later. But how can people get hold of you?
Everything's just Rico Event Management or Rico Entertainment UK. You find me on those links.
Okay. And Wayne?
Give her my email address, wpinnock@gmail.com. Simple, straight.
Straight to it. Malikha is like on every platform, innit?
No, I'm not. I'm not on every platform at all. You can find me on LinkedIn, just Malikha McDonald, MALIKHA McDonald, or you can find me on Twitter, which is the same, at Malikha McDonald. Facebook, you can find my page on Facebook, which is just Malikha McDonald. Everything is one thing.
Just your name.
And just email-wise, it's just info@malikhamcdonald.co.uk. So that's it. Keep it simple, I do.
Excellent. Again, guys, thank you guys so much for your time, and we will see you on the other side, people.